Hello and welcome back to our series on building a drag and drop game with react-beautiful-dnd and ContextAPI. This is the part 4 of the series, and we've done a lot of things in the previous videos basically. So we are moving on and we want to start adding proper functionality to our drag and drop simple React task app. Let's dive into the code. Alright, so I'm just going to switch to our current React app right now. So this is our current React app. We've been able to add a drag drop functionality, but now whenever we drag, it does not stay at the particular position where we are dragging it to. So we need to add that functionality, and the only way we are going to do that is when it's when let's open our components folder, our pages folder, and our home folder. Right, the only way we are going to be able to do that is when we add some code within this undo drag end function right here. Alright, so in order to be able to do that and to do it perfectly, what we want to do currently is to start writing some code now. But before we start writing some code, let's understand what this result object looks like. Right, so I'm going to do CLG and I'm going to console log the result right here. I'm going to console log the result right here. Alright, so console logging the result would then mean that we have to run our app and see what's actually going on in our console. Alright, so whenever I'll reload this page, after reloading the page, then I'm going to be able to just drag. Let me drag and drop somewhere, and let's see what we have right here. We have a couple of information in the results, and we want to look at the data structure before we start doing any other thing else. Alright, so let's look at the data structure. Now there's a combine property, there's a destination property, there is a draggable property, draggable ID property, there's a mode property, there's a reason property, there's a source property, and there's a type property. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to write that out here. So we're going to say results is so let's start from the combine destination. Combine is null currently. Destination, just for us to be able to understand what this particular result object will give us. So destination is an object. It has a droppable ID, which is probably like our column, and it has an index, which is something like 0, like that. We have the source, so I'm not going to be looking at that for now. So source, we have the reason. We have the reason, so reason here is drop. We have the mode, which is fluid. Alright. What else do we have? We have the draggable ID. This is very important. Draggable ID. Alright, so this is lowercase d, and this is like task 1, our task. Alright, these things that we have here. Okay, so the last one we will probably work with is something like this, type. Right, so with all these things that we now have here, let's comment this out and let's begin to work with some of these things. So the first thing I want you to quickly notice is we have the source, and we have the destination, and we have the draggable ID. So the source represents, don't worry about that error. It is when we are trying to write some lines of code that TypeScript generates that error based on the fact that it cannot see, or it cannot process some of the things we are writing at the point in time. So the browser retains that error. So all you have to do is just come here and then reload the page. All right. Now let's talk about the source, the destination, and the draggable ID. The source is the column, right? Remember, it is the column we make droppable, right? It is from this column that you are picking the item that you are dragging, right? So that's the source. Now, if you are dropping on another column, that will be the destination. Or if you are dropping on the same column, that will be the destination. So you can the source can be the destination, and the destination can be different from the source. It depends. All right. That's why you see both source and destination, both of them having the droppable ID here. Now, draggable ID talks about the ID of the current item you are dragging, right? That's draggable ID. All right. The first thing I want us to do here is to destructure these properties from results, right? So let's do something like let's do destination, let's do source, and then let's do draggable ID, let's do type. Those are the ones we'll work with for now. Now the first thing we want to do is if there's no destination, all right, if you are not dropping anywhere, we don't want to do anything. All right. The next thing we want to check is if the destination dot droppable ID is the same thing as the destination. Is the same thing as the source dot droppable ID, and if the source dot index is the same thing as the destination dot index, then this means that you are dragging and dropping in the same place. All right, so we don't want to do anything in this case, we just want to return. All right, whenever I drag and drop in the same place, I don't want to do, right? Not just the same place. All right, I'm dragging and I'm dropping in the same place, that is in the same column and in the same position. All right, if I'm dragging and dropping in the same column and in the same position, we don't want to do anything at all. That's what this logic here means. So if the droppable ID of the source and the destination, if they are the same, which means the same column, and if the index of the source and the destination is the same, which means the same position, we don't want to do anything because you are not actually doing anything. All right. Now, with that done, what we want to now start looking at is, okay, so what else do we want to do? So the first thing I want to do is I want to log my source. I'm going to call it source right here, and then I'm going to log destination. All right, I want to log the two just for for reference whenever we are dragging and dropping, right? You can see here the destination droppable ID and the source droppable ID are the same, while the index are different. All right, now the first thing I want to do is our droppable ID for both source and destination will always be the ID of our columns. So the first thing I want to do is to find the source column and the destination column. All right, that's the first thing I want to do right here. So in doing that, we're going to be able to know the source column and the destination column, and that will help us work on what we need to really work on. So to do that, what I want to quickly do right here is I'm going to do constant start will be my source column, right? Then I'll say I'll say that to be okay. Before I do this, let's do constant current list. Let's make it a let instead, because we might want to change something, so it should not be a constant. So let's do let current list is IC data, and that should be our task context.seed. Remember our seed data. Alright, so with that done, I can say constant start equals current list dot columns. Right, dot columns. What I want to do is dot find. Then I'm going to do x.id. If x.id equals source dot droppable id. Remember, droppable IDs are the ID of our columns. All right, and for the source is the source column, and the destination is the destination column. But I'm not only finding the source column, I also want to find the index of the source column, right? So I'm going to do find index here. Okay, same logic, different functions, right? Find index, and this would make my source, which is the source column. All right, now I'm going to copy the same code, and I'm going to use that to find the destination column, right? So I'm going to do this is destination. So this will be end, and this will be ENext. All right, and then I'll do destination here. All right, so this way I'm going to be able to find my source and destination columns. And what I want to do right here is I will be doing something like this. If source and end, right? If both of them are available, or if they are, it should be if start and end. All right. If both of them are available and they are actually existing, then I want to be able to do what I want to do. All right. The next thing I want to do right here is I want to know if my source column is the same thing as my destination column. All right. So if my source column and my destination column are the same, this means if I'm dragging an item from a column and I'm dropping an item on the same column, but either the same index or a different index. Index here means position, right? Either the same position or different position. But as long as the columns are the same, that's when we want to reorder items within the same list, right? That's the first thing we want to do. Okay, so we want to reorder items within the same list. So we have to know if the ID of the starting column is the same thing as the ID of the ending column, right? Then what we want to do is reorder instead of moving, right? Instead of moving, we want to reorder. Now, for us to properly reorder, I'd like to make a quick change to our seed data and the way we are processing the data right here. So the first thing I want to do is go to our seed data, and then I'm going to create this list. I'm going to say constant tasks equal an array. Then I'm going to copy all the objects within this array. I'm going to cut them out and paste them here, right? And then instead of having an array here in the seed data, I'm going to just put tasks, right? And for these two, I'm going to remove all of this for the first column. I'm going to just spread out the tasks, right? So now this is going to correspond with the interface we created in our utils for columns. Columns, the interface here is every column have an array of tasks, right? So this will properly correspond. And with that done, the next thing here is we don't want to filter task out here anymore. What we want to do is we want to pass in the columns tasks, right? So instead of task right here, we're going to put column dot tasks. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. So our seed data is still the same thing. I've already mentioned that don't worry about this error. When you have this kind of error, just reload the page. All right, so we are back to the same thing we have before. All right, so with that done, what I want to do right here is, now let's go back to our handle drag function. Now that we've been able to determine if the starting column is the same as the ending column, now what we want to do basically is to first, we want to find the task that is currently being tracked, right? So I'm going to come here, I'm going to say item constant item is start dot tasks, right, dot find. Now I want to find the item that is being dragged from the starting column, right? So I'm going to say x here, x.id. If x.id is the same thing as the draggable id, remember we have a draggable id right from this result here that react-beautiful-dnd is returning back to us. That draggable id represents the id of the current item or the current task that we are dragging. All right, so I'm looking for that task within the tasks of the starting column. Now, so I'm going to say if the starting column and the ending column is the same and the item is existing in the starting column, then I want to do the magic I want to do, right? So I'm going to say let start tasks be equals to start.tasks. Now, for us to properly process this well, I want to write a separate function that will reposition an element from one index to another within the same array. So I have an array of elements. I want to move one element from one index to another index in the same array, right? Because that's what this makes, right? Because it's the same list. We just want to move an element from one position to another. That means if you are looking at this as an array, you are looking at an array of elements where you want to move the first element from index 0 to index 2, right? It's the same array, but we are just moving elements within different you are just moving elements from one index to another in the same array. Now that's the function I want to write separately, so that would help us to move elements from one index to another, but in the same array, right? So I'm going to say constant reposition. Here we are going to be taking the array itself, so I'm going to do array of any here. Then we're going to take the from index, which is going to be a data type of number. Then we're going to be taking the to index, which is going to be a data type of number. And then we are going to be returning an array of any, right? Now with this done, what we want to do very quickly is to create a temporary variable right here. So I'm going to correct this by putting an arrow function here. I'm going to say array of any is going to be empty by default. Then I'm going to copy this and paste it below, and then I'm going to create an array called result. This will be equal to the current data by default, the data parameter that we have. All right. Okay, let's make it empty first. I think that would be nice. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to say our temp is equal to, we spread out the elements within the original data, and then first we remove the item that is at the from index, and we save it into a particular variable. So we're going to say constant item here is data.splice, right? You use splice to remove or add elements in the same array. But the reason why we are not using pop and push here is because we are trying to remove an element from a particular index, right? Pop and push will add elements to the array, to the end of the array, and pop will remove elements from the beginning of the array. So we want to add or remove an element to a particular index. We want to add an element in a particular index, or want to remove an element from a particular index, right? Or want to replace an element in a particular index. That's why we are using splice here, right? So I'm removing an element at the from index, right? That element will be returned. That element I just removed will be returned to me in an array. So I'm going to index it out, and I'm going to save it in this particular item here. All right, now I'm going to test if that element is existing. Then what I want to do right here is I want to make my result to be equal to the remaining elements in the original array, right? Because the moment I remove this item, it will be removed automatically. It will not be part of the elements of the array anymore, right? So I'm going to be putting all of the remaining elements in the result, and then I'm going to add the element I just removed. I'm going to add it back to the result, but this time around what I'm doing is I'm adding it to the to index, right? And then because I want to add, I'm not replacing, I'm going to pass in index 0, and then I'm going to add the item. So this place, what we are doing here is we are remove item from index, and add and save to a variable or a constant, and save. Let's just put and save here. All right, then here we are spread out the remaining items, and then add item back. So we add the item back to the to index specified. So I want to move from index 0 to index 2, right? So I'm adding the item back to that particular index using splice. Now let's say the item is not existing. All right, what we want to just do here is to say result is the original array back. All right, so based on that, we're going to return the result here. So now this will help us reposition, right? It will help us move an element from one index to another index within the same array. Now that's exactly what we need right here. So we'll go back to our handle drag function, and then we can start using this repositioning reposition function. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say constant result equals, then I'm going to call reposition here. I want to reposition the original array is start tasks. Now I want to reposition from the source. You remember, the source and the source column and the ending column, they are the same. So what I just need to do is just reorder the items, right? So I'm going to use the source index here. That is the item you are dragging. What position is it? What's the default position? That's the source index. Then I'm going to take it to the destination index. All right. So the from index here will be the source index. The to index here will be the destination index. All right. So with that done, I'm going to then say task start.tasks equals to result. Remember, this will return back the whole array back to me. Then I'll bring this, I'll equate it to my start. The reason why I'm equating it to start, I can equate it to end, but remember, start and end are the same here, right? So I can equate it to any one of them. So I'm going to do start.task equals to result, and then I'm going to do current list dot splice, or current list dot columns, dot splice. Remember, start here is a column, end is also a column, right? Remember, and also let's remember that start now has an updated list of items where the items has been reordered. All right, so I want to put that whole column back into the list of columns that we have by default. All right, so what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to say ESNext. We found the index of the starting column here, so I'm going to be replacing it here. Then I'll put one here, and then I'll put start. Now, after doing this, what we want to do lastly is to say task context, context API dot set seed, and then we're going to put current list here. Okay, now that means that our current list now has an updated information, and we are setting it back to the original data we have. All right, so with this done, let's get back to our browser and reload the page in case you have that error shown on your browser. Now what I want to do is I want to drag the last task here. I want to move it to the second task. All right, you can see this is staying there, right? Instead of what we have previously, where if we drag it does not stay. Now it is staying because of this reordering thing that we just did. All right, see what it took us to be able to reorder. But I can assure you that this particular reposition function here is what is doing the magic for us. That's how we are able to reposition, we are able to move this cooked dinner item here from the last to the second. All right, and we can move this also to the second. We can even move this to the second. So in other words, we can reorder these items the way we want, right? Whichever way we want, and it's going to work, right? Now that we've been able to reorder items within the same list, now let's check what can be done for us to be able to move an item from one list to another. All right, we want to be able to move from here to here, and it will stay. Okay, to be able to do that, we have to write another logic here. So we have to say if start.id is not equal to end.id, right? And item is existing. Now we know that our starting column is not the same as our ending column. So what do we want to do in this case? What we want to do is very simple. We want to remove that item from the starting column and add it to the ending column, right? It's a very simple thing. So now that's what we're going to be doing right now. Just I want to clear my throat. Sorry about that. Okay, so what we're doing right now is to take the item from the starting column, remove it from the starting column, and then add it to the ending column, right? So we are taking the item away from the list of tasks of the starting column and adding it to the list of tasks in the ending column. All right, I think I've emphasized that enough. All right, so it's time for us to do that. So basically, the first thing I want to do here basically is to basically say okay, let's say let start tasks be equals to tasks, right? Let end tasks be equal to end.tasks. All right, so if I log this two, let's log these two out. So start tasks and end tasks. Let's log these two out. Let's drag and drop. So I'm going to drag from here and drop here. Don't understand what's going on here. All right, it's not even logging. So there's something going on here. Okay. Oh, okay, so we've said if there's no destination, but actually there should be a destination. All right, so what we want to do, the first thing I want to do here is to I want something to happen in our column component. I want a situation where we can do something like this. So let's take out this class and then add a curly brace here, and we are using backticks instead. Then I want to do something like this using our template literals. I want to say snapshot dot is dragging over. All right, if is dragging over is true, then I want to add a background. I want to say active here. I want to add a class called active. Now what are we going to do? Let's go to our CSS file and then let's go look for our task lists. We're going to say column task lists dot active. All right, so we're going to say background color is let's use but I don't want to use aqua here. Let's use a more bluish background. All right, so what I want to do here is, if I'm dragging right here, now you can see that this background is not blue. The reason why it is blue here and it is blue here, so what we want to achieve with that background is, whenever you are dragging over a list, we want the background to be highlighted so you know where you are supposed to drop. Now you can see that the height of the task list here is not the height is too small. That's why we are dragging here and it's not dropping anything. All right, so for us to fix that, we are going to say the minimum height of our task list should be something around say 250 pixels. All right, so now that we have this, if I drag over this place, you can see that the background of the task list will be highlighted, so we know where we are dropping, where we are supposed to drop. All right, and this makes a lot of sense. All right, don't forget we were able to achieve this using the is dragging over from our snapshot in our column, in our droppable component. Okay, so let's get back to this place and then let's check again. So if I drag here and drop, now what happens is my source and my destination is logged to the console, but what we are looking for here is we are looking at our start tasks and our end task. So our start task is 4, but our end task is nothing. So currently there's nothing on the list of our ending tasks. All right, so with that with that noted, now the first thing we want to do is we want to remove the item that is being dragged, right? we want to remove it from the start tasks. Okay, we want to remove it from the start tasks. So now this will cause us to find the index of the currently dragged item. Okay, so we're going to say item index, right? So we are finding the index. Change this finds to find index here. All right, and then here we're going to say and item index is greater than or equal to 0. All right, so we want to be sure that the item and the item index is existing. Now we're going to say, I'm going to do start tasks dot splice, and then we're going to say item index comma 1, right? It's going to remove the item from the from the starting column. Then very quickly we want to say start.tasks equals start tasks. All right, so we've removed the item from there. Now we want to add it somewhere else. Okay, we want to add it to the end task. So we're going to say end tasks dot splice, right? End tasks dot splice. So okay, let's not use splice here. Let's just use push is enough. And then we're going to say tasks, sorry, not task. It's going to be item. All right, so and then we're going to say end dot tasks equals end tasks. Now what we want to quickly do is to basically now add these two updated columns back into the current. We want to add these two updated columns back into the current list. All right, so we're going to say current list dot columns dot splice. I'm going to say s index, that's the starting one, the starting column. We want to replace it with the start, and then we're going to do the same for e index. We want to replace with end. All right, because both start and end now have updated list of tasks, right? And then lastly we are going to say task context dot set seed, and we're going to set that to our current list. All right, so basically we've been able to move one task from the source column to the destination column. All right, so I'm going to reload this page and let's check this out. So if I drag this here now, you can see that it's dragging and it's dropping on the in progress column. So I've been able to move it away from the to do column to the in progress column. All right, so now I'll explain again. I'll go over this again. So what we did was that we save the current tasks of both the starting column and the ending column into a variable, and then we remove the item that is being dragged from the starting column, from the list of tasks of the starting column, and then also we added that item to the ending column, right, which is the destination. And then we replace both, because now both the starting and the ending column now have updated list of tasks. Then we replace them in the list of columns that we have in our original data, and then we add that original data back into our seed data. All right, that way it's getting updated. So ContextAPI is going to be able to is going to help us to manage the state and make sure that they are updating in real time. All right, that's how we are able to achieve this. So I can drop this, I can drag this back here, I can change, I can reorder. In fact, I can drag this and begin to reorder, right? The reordering still work here. Okay, I can drag this here, drag this here and reorder, drag this here. All right, so I'm going to drag everything back, and our drag and drop is now working perfectly. Okay, now what I want to quickly do is to basically I want to make sure that when you drag an item to this in progress column, the color of this particular handle here changes. All right, so how do we do that? It's a CSS thing. We're just going to say, so each column here has a class name, right? They're just column. Now what I want to do is I want to add their ID as their class names, also as part of the class names. So I'm not just going to be doing column here, so I'm going to remove this, put backticks, add it back, and then I'm going to say ID here, so that each of them will have column and column 1, column 2, column 3. All right, so that in my CSS I can then say column dot column 2, right? Remember, column 2 is in progress, dot task item dot undo. All right, so instead, then I'm going to say background color is let's just do yellow here, but this is not the kind of yellow I'm looking for. This is the kind of yellow I'm looking for, something a little bit bright or close to orange. All right, so now with that done, it's very easy. If I drag here, you can see the undo now changes to yellow. All right, so by the time we drag to this point too, we are going to change the undo to green. Okay, now we can add a lot of functionality here. All right, so I'm going to say column 3, I'm going to change this to green. Okay, so now, so I'm going to drag from here to here, and then the undo changes to green. Drag it here, the undo changes to yellow. And so by their colors, you will be able to understand, oh, which one is in progress, which one is done, which one is still in to do. All right, now just to put some context into what you are doing, and quick recognition. All right, so another thing I want to do is I don't want to be able to drag the whole item. I want a situation whereby if I want to drag, I will have to drag from the undo, not the whole item. All right, to be able to do that, that's quite easy. I'm going to go to the task component here, right? And instead of adding the provided drag and do props to the task item itself, I'm going to cut it out from here, and I'm going to add it to the span right here. All right, so if you want to make a particular element in the item you want to drag, you want to make that particular element, that's the only one that will be draggable, or that's where you can drag from. All you have to do is just add the provided drag and drop props to that particular element. All right, so if I reload this page, you will see that I'm not able to drag the item anymore, right? If I want to drag, I'll have to click on the undo and then drag. All right, so I won't be able to drag this way. I'll have to click on the undo and drag. I'll have to click on the undo and drag. In fact, that's the reason why the undo is there. All right, with this done, we've been able to add good functionalities to our drag and drop simple task app, right? If I drag, I can reorder between two columns. Within a column, I can reorder lists, tasks, right? I can drag from one column to another, and then the color of the handle will change. I can also drag only by the handle, right? I can move this to done, right? And all of that. So another thing, maybe some few other things we want to check, we want to do is, can we disable dropping on a particular column, right? In case we don't want people to, we don't want your users, or maybe you are an organization and your employees are dragging tasks from one column to another, and you don't want them to be able to drop on a particular column. You want to be the one to drop on that column yourself. All right, so we can disable dropping on a particular column. Okay, so how can we do that? We can go here. Let's go to our column and let's do is drop disabled. So we can add is drop disabled on a droppable, on our droppable. And what we want to do here is we want to say if id equals column 3, then we want to put 2 true here. If not, it's going to be false. All right, so the only one we want to disable is done. That's why we are putting column 3. So you will see if I drag an item from here and I drop here, if I try to drop here, you will see that I won't be able to drop because we've disabled the dropping, right? I can only drop here, right? So as an administrative or a product manager or whoever you are in your organization, you can disable the drop. All right, so now we don't want to just disable the drop statically. What we want to do here is we want you to be able to click a particular button that would specify that, you can now disable, the drop is disabled. All right, so what we want to do here is we're going to cut this out. We're going to say div class name column head. All right, column head. So let's go back to our CSS, and then let's say instead of column h1 here, we're going to say dot column head. That's margin bottom 2 rem. Then we're going to say column head is display flex. We'll say align items center, right? And then we're going to say dot column h2 or h1. We're going to say margin bottom is 0. In fact, margin is 0 by default. All right, then we're going to say we're going to come back here. We're going to import link. So we're going to import from React router DOM. I'm going to import link. I'm going to destructure link from React router DOM, and then we're going to put link here. It's not supposed to lead to anywhere, and then we're going to say this is like see, this is supposed to be like a checkbox. Say disable drop, right? Disable drop. So we're going to come back here. I'm going to say dot column head, and we're going to select the link tag, that is the anchor tag. We're going to say margin left is auto, so that it can shift to the right here. All right, you can shift to the right, and then we're going to say font size is like 13 pixels, so that it's going to be smaller, right? In fact, let's change this to like DD, disable drop, DD. All right, So we just know we have to click it to make it work. All right, so let's do DD there. So font size is 13 pixels, and then we're going to say color is blue. So there's a kind of blue we want to use, not just any kind of blue. So color is blue, and I think we're going to say text decoration is none. We don't want that underlining there. All right, we just want this to be just so DD here means disable drop. All right, or you can say DDP or something. All right, so with that done, what we want to do is we want to say, okay, I want to write a function here. I want to say constant disable drop. So we're going to take two parameters, the event and then the ID of the column that we want to disable the drop. All right, then what we're going to also do here is we're going to say constant disabled set disabled, right? So we're going to say use state string, and then we're going to equate it to nothing. Okay, now what we want to do is we are going to say in our disable drop function, we're going to say if the event is present, we're going to say e.prevent default. The reason is because we don't want this particular anchor tag here to trigger its default function, right? That's why we're saying prevent default there. Then what we're going to do here is we're going to say set disabled to whatever ID we're passing. All right, so with that done, instead of saying if ID is column 3 here, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to say if disabled is equal to ID, then is drop disabled will be true. If not, is drop disabled will be false. Now also we want to change the content here. I want to say if disabled is not empty, right? Then put if disabled is not empty. That means that is equal to the ID of a particular column, right? So what we want to put here is ed, right? Ed means enable drop. But if disable is empty, we want to put dd, right? Dd means disable drop. All right, now what this would help us achieve here is that we can only disable drop on one single column. We can't disable dropping on every column, because this disabled will be equal to a particular column ID, right? And it can be equal to all column IDs. So every time we press DD, it will be disabled on that particular column, right? And not other columns. So now for this to work, we're going to add on click here. On click, we're going to say E, we're going to say disable drop. This is where we call the function. We pass in E and we pass in the ID of that particular column. All right, so with that done, let's reload the page. If I click here, it's going to change to ED, right? If I click again, it's going to change. It's not changing, right? It's not changing. All right, because we didn't put the logic here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if ID, we're going to say if disabled, if the current value of disabled is the same thing as ID, right? We want to set disabled to empty. Else, right, we want to set disabled to ID. Okay, I'm going to put if here. All right, so what we are saying is if the current value of disabled is set to the ID of that particular column, right, we want to enable automatically. Enabling means just setting disabled back to empty string, right? Now if that ID is nothing or is not the same thing as the ID we passed in, right? If the current value of disable is not the same thing as the ID we're passing, then we want to set it to the ID we're passing. All right, so this way it's going to change. So if I click this, it's going to change to ed. If I click again, it's going to change to dd. All right, so dd means disable drop, ed means enable drop. So now it is at dd, which means I can drag something here, right? After dragging something here, if I press dd, that means drop is currently disabled here. So if I drag something here, it's not going to drag. I'll not be able to drop here. But you see, I can drag this out. Even though drop is disabled here, I can drag this out. If I drag it out and I drag it back in, it's not going to work. All right, that's the exact experience we want to actually have, so that we can disable dropping on each column. Now if I disable drop on in progress, remember drop is currently disabled on done. So if I disable drop on in progress, it's going to automatically enable drop on done, right? So if I disable drop here, now automatically drop is going to be enabled here, right? So if I go here, oh wow, it's not enabled. So let's see what's going on here. So what we said is, oh, let's do this here. So we are supposed to say if disabled is not equal to id, or okay, so let's do if disabled is equal to id here, then we should do ed. If not, dd. All right, so let's reload this page. I'm going to disable here. If I press dd here, this is supposed to automatically change to dd, and I guess that is because of oh, it's not going to change because we are dealing with it's not going to change actually, because we are dealing with a component here. So each of these are components. So if I want to make this enabled back, I'll have to come and click here, right? This is because we are dealing with components. So each of these are components, and these functions work for each component, not for everything, right? So the way we wrote the logic is not going to work for everything at the same time. All right, sorry for the confusion the other time, but this is the way it's supposed to work. So I can disable here, and also disable here, right? So which means I can't drag on any of this, I can't drop on any of this, right? And I can enable everything, and then I can drag. All right, which is a cool experience for us. All right, now that we've been able to achieve our drag and drop on a simple task application in React, now this is all we have to do to achieve our drag and drop. We've been able to reorder items, right? We've been able to reorder items, right? We can drag to other columns and also reorder on that same column, and we can drag to other columns, the third column here, and also reorder, right? So our drag and drop is working effectively and functionally, right? And we also added a enable disable dropping functions. So there are other things we can do. We can reorder this column actually, right? But we're not going to experience that here. We're going to experience the reordering of columns horizontally, when we are building our drag and drop game, right? So this particular part would end our simple task app in React, right? This particular part will end this simple task app. So in the next part, which is part 5, we're going to start discussing the kind of game we want to build, what the game entails, what are the things we are going to need, and how are we going to construct the game, or how does it work. How will it work? All right, and then we're going to pull up a new React application, and we're going to build the game from ground up. All right, with that done, thank you very much for following up to this point, and I want you to practice this and practice it well. Build your own, and you can share whatever you come up with in the description of this video, or you follow us on our social media handles, and you can share with us what you've built, and let us see what you've built, and know that this has also helped you improve your skills in terms of building front-end applications or React applications, or even adding drag and drop functionalities to your applications. Now, this particular functionality right here that you see is useful in many front-end applications. All right, I've already disabled drop in here, so I can enable it back and then drop. Right, this particular functionality, this drag and drop functionality, is actually useful in many front-end applications. As a software engineer, you should know how to do this, and you should know how to effectively do it. Now, there are some information, or there are some things that we need to check later about how to make this effective with React applications, such that we don't have some bugs or some things that will disturb our production applications. We're going to check all of that after building our drag and drop game. We'll see in the next part of the series. Thank you.